What if I told you that the biggest prison you live in is invisible? You wake up, live, react, surrender, but deep down feel that you are losing yourself, as if you had become accustomed to survive without actually being present. How many times did you say yes, meaning no? How many times have you cancelled yourself just so as not to disappoint someone? How many times have you looked in the mirror and thought, who am I trying to be? If this touched you, maybe it's time to wake up from the automatic. Have you ever felt that you are living in the automatic? Reacts without thinking, clings without realizing, speaks more than it should, gives up until empty, and yet you feel that something is missing. As if your energy was being drained by 1,000 small concessions, by triggers that you no longer understand, by roles that you wear only to be accepted. But what if I told you that there is another way? A way where you are no longer moved by fear, want, or need for approval. A silent, deep path where you learn to observe yourself, to prioritize yourself, to let go, and finally to become someone emotionally unreachable. Not unreachable by arrogance, but by integrity, by autonomy, for having done the internal work that most avoid. In this way, every choice ceases to be reaction and becomes consciousness. Are you ready to start? Have you ever noticed how sometimes a simple word, an expression, a gesture awakens in you an almost automatic reaction? A squeeze in the chest, a rising heat, an uncontrollable will to respond, to justify, to attack. But stop and think for a moment. Where does this urgency come from? Why do some situations take you off the axis so easily, while other people seem to go through the same chaos with absolute serenity? Carl Jung would say, what irritates you dominates you. And what irritates you the most is usually a reflection of what you have not yet integrated within yourself. The reactive person is not strong, he is predictable, and therefore easy to manipulate. When you react on impulse, it is not you who are in control, it's your wound, it's your shadow screaming for attention. But what if you learned to observe without drowning in what you feel? What if you could watch the chaos without becoming part of it? Not reacting is not being passive, it is to be free. It is the beginning of a real autonomy, where no one else presses your buttons because you have taken them off. You have seen them, you have understood them. Imagine the power of someone who does not need to win a fight, who does not need to prove anything, who simply sees, understands, and chooses silence. But of course, this does not happen overnight. You will need to face what makes you explode inside. You will need to dive into yourself and ask, why does this bother me so much? What inside of me is still asking to be solved? This is the point where most give up, but it's also where real transformation begins. Are you willing to go there? What do you still hold firmly, even though you know that you should have already let go? A person, an expectation, an old ideal of who you thought you needed to be. Attachment is a silent weight. It disguises itself with love, care, even responsibility. But deep down it is fear. Fear of losing, fear of emptiness, fear of not having more control. But here's a paradox. The more you hold, the more you get stuck. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires detachment, because everything you can't let go of controls you. What if I told you that what is really yours never needs to be forced, never needs to be gripped with despair? What is true remains. Even when you open your hand, letting go is not giving up. It's trusting. It's recognizing that not everything needs to be dragged with you forever. But of course, release hurts. It hurts because it messes with your identity, with the image you've created of yourself and the world. If I release this, who do I become? What is left of me without this story, this person, this role? The answer may scare, but it can also free. There is a kind of force that only comes after you allow yourself to lose, after you let go, and remains whole. Are you ready for this kind of strength? Have you noticed how silence sometimes speaks louder than any argument? We live in a noisy world. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to taste, show, convince. But there is a subtle, almost invisible power in those who choose strategic silence, who speaks too much, reveals too much. Give up your fears, your insecurities, your plans ahead of time. Lose the mystery, and along with it, respect. Silence bothers because it forces the other to look at you, filling the spaces with assumptions, doubts, projections. And in this space of uncertainty, you become unforgettable. Why do you think some people enter an environment and no one can ignore them, even without saying a word? They are not trying to prove anything. They are not available for any conversation. They do not expose their soul to any look. There is a magnetic energy in those who master the art of unspoken. But attention, silence is not coldness. It's intention. It's unexplained presence. It's knowing how to shut up when they expect you to react. It is not to reveal your plans before they are ready. It is to keep your energy as something sacred. What if you started using silence as a strategy, how to preserve yourself and amplify your presence? Not everything needs to be explained. Not everything needs to be justified. Often, the true power is precisely in what you choose not to say. Are you ready to make the world curious? Not out of malice, but because you taught the world to put you in the background. And the most cruel. Often, the one who gives more is the one who is left out. Not because of a lack of courage, but because there is no limit. Jung said that the process of becoming yourself requires a healthy separation from others. You have to learn to say no, firmly. No guilt, no drama, no need to explain. Because every time you abandon yourself to please someone, you weaken, and gradually it begins to disappear inside of you. Have you ever felt like this? Invisible even to yourself? Enough. Self-priority is not selfishness. It's emotional survival. As you come back to yourself, put your feet on the ground and say, I also matter. I also deserve presence, care, space. Who respects himself inspires respect. Who chooses himself begins to be chosen. But this requires courage. Courage to withdraw when it is not valued. Courage to be alone when necessary. Courage to be whole, even when they expect you to split. Are you ready to choose yourself, even if it displeases those who have grown accustomed to your lack of limits? Have you ever felt that something inside of you changed, and suddenly the whole world started to treat you differently? It's subtle, but it's real. You talk less, feel more, you need less approval. And without realizing it, it starts to attract the respect that you had to ask for. This is transformed presence. It's not about appearance, it's about energy. People notice when you're no longer in need of acceptance, when you are no longer trying to please to belong, when you simply are. When you become whole inside, you don't have to prove anything else on the outside. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It is the end of emotional dependence, the end of the need to convince, conquer, explain. Jung used to say that true change happens when you integrate your shadows, when you stop running away from yourself and begin to inhabit. And when this happens, something magical occurs. The world sees you as someone who cannot be bought or controlled, as someone who has presence, not just appearance. Do you know someone like that? That person who enters a place and changes the environment without saying a word. She does not beg for attention. It carries a silent certainty. It is free and therefore powerful. You too can be that person. But first, you need to decide. Will you continue shaping yourself to what they expect from you, or will you start building your presence from within? Because when you change, everything changes. But the change starts now. In silence, in the way you look at yourself, in what you decide to never ignore yourself again. You don't have to become someone else. You need, for the first time, to be completely you. No noise, No masks. Without the urgency of being understood, accepted, or validated. True power was never in what you show, but in what you hold when no one is looking. And now that you know, now that you've seen what happens when you don't react, when you release, when you shut up, when you choose, you can no longer fit back into what was diminishing you. You don't have to run. You don't have to prove it. You just need to keep going. One step at a time, one silence at a time, a conscious choice at a time. Because when his presence changes inside, the whole world turns around him. And perhaps, without realizing it, you are already becoming that rare kind of person that no one can manipulate, no one can predict, and no one can ignore. And now, tell me, how many times have you lost yourself trying to please? How many times did you stop what hurt just to fit? If something inside you has been touched by this text, do not ignore it. Perhaps it is your soul asking for attention. So I ask you, are you ready to stop abandoning yourself? If that made sense to you, like the video, send it to someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment saying where you most identified yourself. Your experience may awaken other journeys. See you in the next video.